Welcome, everybody, to the Get Healthy brand webinar this month. And I have to say, I've been super excited for this one all month long because by far DesBio, as everybody knows, and I tell people all the time, is my favorite homeopathic company. I have been working with them for over a decade. And so we're so glad you're here. I'm Dr. Tracy. I'm the Vice President of Innovation and Growth here at Get Healthy Store. I'm also a practicing ND, so I have a store, I use it, I love it. And so we're just super honored to have DesBio presenting for us tonight. And with us is Dr. Ashley Beckman. She's going to be leading us through forging our clinical practice with emotional remedies, which is going to be wonderful. And so Dr. Ashley, thank you for being here and helping us host this webinar. I'm going to step out and let you take over.
Of course. Thank you so much. I love DesBio and I have been using them for 20 years. I think that they're an amazing company. And again, I love the different products because I focus and specialize on mold and Lyme. And as we know, even if your clients just have traditional things going on, it's really important to support their mental, emotional aspects as well. And so we're going to be chatting about that tonight with elevating our patient outcomes with mental emotional remedies from DesBio. So again, always this information that is included in this presentation is for educational purposes and not to be taken for medical advice. And this presentation is intended for healthcare professionals and not for the general public. And we are using products that are formulated according to traditional homeopathic principles and are not intended to treat any sort of disease. So if you're not a healthcare professional, please discontinue viewing and contact your healthcare provider for guidance regarding your healthcare goals. So what we're going to go over tonight are a few things. We are going to talk about my missing link, the top 5 mental emotional remedies that I use from DesBio, and then adding to your existing protocols. So this is what I found to be my missing link. I worked in a busy functional medicine practice for about 10 years and saw about 50,000 patients. And I got to see a lot of what was going on, especially from a physical standpoint, but then again, linking and seeing what was going on with these clients on an emotional level as well. And we do know that there is always a significant emotional stress that must be addressed, right? So even if someone has a very seemingly physical issue, there's usually something on the emotional side. And this is actually why I got into Chinese medicine, because we don't separate the two. When you have an emotional issue, it often can manifest in an organ and have a physical issue, or when you have a physical ailment or issue, we need to see what emotions could be involved. So I love using these remedies because they really help with both aspects of that. And that is something that makes the outcome of your client's success much better. So again, I really love the notion that you really cannot separate the emotional side from the physical side of ailments and that we need to address both. So probably one of the most common remedies that I utilize in my practice is called anxious. Now, this is a homeopathic remedy that is often used to relieve temporary symptoms of stress, mild anxiousness, worry, overwhelm, and fear. So again, a lot of our clients, when they have issues with their gut, this often manifests in anxiety, or a lot of people just have so much going on in their life and they're overwhelmed that they need some extra support. And this is one of my favorite remedies to help support my clients. I use this also with my clients who have a lot of chronic illness symptoms. And so again, a lot of my practice is based on mold and Lyme, again, pandas, neurological issues, and a lot of adrenal fatigue as well. And then a lot of blood sugar issues when you're dealing with clients that aren't quite as sick. But basically, this can really help. It supports them throughout the process. And again, a lot of people with Lyme and mold have kind of a PTSD from seeing doctor after doctor and feeling like that they're not heard, that they're gaslit. And so this is something that actually kind of does help relieve some of that underlying anxiety that they have, right? And this is really, really helpful for any of your clients that have issues with their adrenals, stage 1 through 3. I utilize this a lot. And again, a lot of people, and especially little kiddos, just have some mild anxiety. I see this more and more with teenagers as well, and then again, little kids. And so this is very easy because you can put a few drops in their water that they take to school, and it's pretty easy to implement into a protocol. So one of my clients that had a lot of benefit from this particular remedy is a 44-year-old woman who has Hashimoto's, so autoimmune thyroid, adrenal issues, Lyme, and mold. And she had a sudden increase of anxiety that began every single morning upon waking, and it lasted throughout the whole day. She didn't really know where this came from, except she did have a history of a lot of trauma. She was going through a divorce. And she basically also had a very busy business. And so she did have a lot of stress, even though in the past, she didn't really feel like that had impacted her much. She also had decided to become vegan, which I did advise against because in Chinese medicine, when you have anxiety and when you're really trying to nourish the system, we do like to use meat for medicinal purposes. So again, she went against my liking to do that, but she had a lot of anxiety. And so one of the main things that we had to also remind her of is that she needed to consume 30 grams of protein within an hour of waking up. She also needed to eliminate caffeine, especially on an empty stomach when she first woke up. And what we did was the first initial dose she had of the day was taking 10 drops upon waking. And then again, if she needed it a little bit later for more support, she would take an additional 10 drops. Now, she is someone that we put it in her water so that she could have that throughout the day as needed. But again, the client can either take this under the tongue or in some water. Now, this remedy is really great as well. It's called Elevate. And this is for your client that has more of this hopelessness feeling, sadness, weeping, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating, irritability, loss of appetite, and even some self-loathing. So again, I just keep seeing more and more clients that are little kiddos that are sick and have a lot of mental emotional issues, right? And this is how it manifests at first. So sometimes your child, you just might notice they might be more despondent, or again, they're having issues at night and going to bed, or if they're having issues concentrating at school, this is a really great remedy to implement. And this is used a lot for my clients who have more chronic pain, PMS issues. Again, most all of my clients, I work with a lot of mold toxicity, so that's a big piece of my practice. And then a lot of things that come with that are chronic infections. I run a lot of different labs, and we can just see that there are a lot of people have a lot of different viruses and chronic infections. And this is something that can just kind of help them get through this on an emotional level, because basically when you're working with things that take a lot of time to resolve, you need some help on the mental emotional side because it's a long journey, right? I talk to my clients, as most people do, saying that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And just thinking about how long they've either been sick or how long a protocol might take for them to feel significantly better can be a bit daunting. And this is a great remedy to help support that and support them through the process. So I use this especially for one particular client who was a 75-year-old female, very overwhelmed, and so much in the fact that she was getting more scattered. She had a lot of brain fog. Some memory issues were starting to come in. And we did 10 drops 3 times a day. And then additionally, if she needed any, she just would take 10 drops under her tongue as well. So this actually really helped her pretty quickly. Now, some people are very responsive to remedies, and I do find that they can be very subtle. So sometimes people who are used to herbs and pharmaceuticals, they want something that has an instant reaction, right? Or they feel initially just right away better. And I feel that a lot of times the homeopathic remedies, and this can be the same with flower essences, it's a bit more subtle, right? But this client is very sensitive, and she was able to really notice a difference just within a few days. So she felt less stressed, less overwhelmed, and then more grounded, right? So a lot of times when there's brain fog and memory issues, again, with Chinese medicine, we want to kind of ground the client and direct that chi from out of the head and like into their body and down into their feet, right? So sometimes I give people some different visualizations to help with that, but the remedy we use also helps a lot. Now, this is one of my favorite remedies, especially for thyroid support and for those clients who are just exhausted, tired, and just feel depleted, right? So this is the Energize formula. It comes also in a tablet form, which I do utilize quite a bit. Generally, these are my clients, usually the females with thyroid issues, or again, they could have post-COVID, they have hypothyroidism, chronic fatigue, C. diff, and candida. And I've also used this with my clients with mold toxicity and Lyme as well. But these drops are really great to just help bring back some of that energy that they need. And so again, my client who had amazing success with these, again, I use the tablets for her, but she's a 40-year-old female, hypothyroid, already on thyroid medication, suspected Lyme. And actually, since I've done this, she definitely had various strains of Lyme, which I knew was lurking, major depression, lots of mold toxicity, insomnia. She's on 2 different medications for insomnia and has a lot of adrenal fatigue. So the 2 tablets of Energize twice daily helped her exponentially. And the other thing we did add, which is another one of my favorite products from DesBio, is Adrenal Synergy. So though that is an herbal capsule and an adrenal glandular, but I really love those, and I actually love to pair these 2 together. Now, this product called Esteem is something that's really good as well. So a lot of my clients, again, there's sometimes these different dynamics that clients have with their caretaker, with their spouse, with their kids. And we see the low self-esteem showing up a lot with kids. And then again, sometimes within a spousal relationship, right? So sometimes people have some issues with codependency or a lack of self-confidence, and maybe even some narcissistic tendencies. So I really love to use this, especially with little kids and teenagers. I see this quite a bit. And again, a lot of them are just navigating different things in their life. And a lot of them seem to have some issues with self-esteem and self-confidence. And this is one of my favorite products to implement with that and with them. But again, you can also use this too. Some medical things that I see, or some conditions that I see often where this can also be very helpful, are people that have overgrowth of candida, different autoimmune issues, Hashimoto's, addiction, of course, and then weight management issues. So now this client I had is a 40-year-old female. She has quite a bit of exposure to mold. She went through 3 or 4 remediations in their home, still not feeling that much better. So sometimes there's quite a bit, again, I was mentioning some mold PTSD. So she was also having a lot of leg swelling, hives. She has hypothyroidism, beginning to get hot flashes, always had anxiety and a little bit of depression as well, and ADHD. So what we did is we only gave her 3 drops 3 times a day in water. We worked up to this because she's very, very sensitive. She's someone that once when we were implementing a binder for the mold toxicity, it took us up to a year for her to take a full capsule, right? So one thing I love about DesBio's products is with the homeopathics, we can dilute them so much so that even my very sensitive clients, little kids, and then kids, it's very easy to figure out different dosages based on their needs. So she's, again, because she's very sensitive, she reacted really quickly, right? So she had a lot more clarity of thought, more action. She's an online business owner. So she really needed to have energy and confidence. And this was really helping her get motivated again in her business, and her thoughts were more clear and she was less scattered. So again, I love the fact that we can customize so much with DesBio with the drops, right? I used to even utilize maybe one drop in a water bottle, and you denote that on the water bottle that this is somebody's dosage bottle, and that they could just take a sip, right? So that one dose is extremely diluted, and that can be very helpful for little kids, again, or someone who's very, very sensitive. So motivation is one of my all-time favorite remedies too. A lot of people too, you know, when you're chronically sick or you have something that is just really zapping your energy and your adrenals are low and the mitochondria are affected, motivation is very low, right? There's motivation takes a hit. It could look like depression. It can look like boredom. People are very unhappy with their jobs and their life. Their ambition is lower. There's a mental fatigue that's just kind of hanging over them, a lack of self-confidence, hopelessness, and then the passion for life and for things that they enjoy is generally gone or very much dissipated. So this is a really great formula to help support someone throughout this process. This can also be correlated when clients have Epstein-Barr, if they have adrenal fatigue, and different issues like mycoplasma and H. pylori and cytomegalovirus. And this is a really great formula to utilize during divorce, right? So a lot of the times clients, I think that we recognize that someone might need a mental emotional remedy through a stressful situation, but a lot of these different pathogens create a whole lot of cellular stress, which, depending on whatever organ could be impacted, can also manifest in that sort of emotion. So for example, we know that Epstein-Barr can have a big impact on the liver. And then in Chinese medicine, the liver is very much associated with the emotions of anger, resentment, irritability, depression, and rage. So a lot of people might be experiencing these emotional symptoms, and then you can kind of tie that to the pathogen and maybe what organ it's impacting. Same with mold toxicity. Mold has such a big impact on many organs, but for example, the liver, there's a lot of anger associated with people going through mold toxicity. But then if you go to also, if it's impacting their lungs, the lungs in Chinese medicine are very much connected to grief and sadness. So again, if someone is crying for no reason, right, we want to kind of take a look and see what remedy could really help them throughout this process. And then again, you can take a look and see, does this pathogen have an affinity toward a specific organ? And if so, what would be a good remedy to support them mentally and emotionally throughout this process? So this client is a 45-year-old female, burned out, has ADD, mold toxicity, Lyme and co-infections, is just starting to get into the perimenopause phase, hypothyroid, works 60 hours a week. So it's no wonder that motivation would be low, but when it's not in somebody's personality to have low motivation, again, we're going to look at this from the physical way of how to support them, but these mental emotional remedies really help on the emotional side, right? So we want to make sure and support your client through that process too. So even though this client is very overworked and scattered and unmotivated and overwhelmed, this is a really great formula to just kind of help support that. And again, it's usually a gentle support. It's not always something that someone notices right away, but when we talk to them, if it's a few days later or a week, it's always good to see if there was a subtle shift, right? And sometimes it's so subtle that the client doesn't recognize it, but that's where it can be really helpful to ask your clients, about their wins, or again, bring up some of these symptoms that you spoke about in the last session, because if it's so subtle, they might not recognize it. And then they realize, oh, this is a little bit better, right? That's how a lot of these, I think, mental emotional remedies help. It's almost like They don't even notice that that issue has dissipated, but it can be very helpful. So with this client, we used 10 drops of motivation 4 times a day, 10 drops of energize 4 times a day, and then the adrenal synergy. Again, I usually make sure clients take this before 2 p.m. And then she was also on the thyroid synergy, which is another one of my favorite formulas from DesBio. So again, just within a few days of adding this in, this client was more motivated, focused, and energized. So again, as much as I love the mental emotional remedies, I also really love the glandular products, and they combine glandular with herbals as well. So again, they can really be kind of a jump start that someone might need, especially within a lot of these issues where the HPA axis is greatly affected, right? So I love the adrenal synergy, the thyroid synergy. And then again, when someone is really depleted, we also just want to make sure and see how we can support their stress levels and make sure too that they don't have any issues with iron or ferritin and things like that. So these are the top remedies that I use a lot with my clients. There are quite a few more that I love. I would suggest them for most clients. Like I said, I usually pick 1 or 2 depending on the client. And then it is paired with other products from DesBio. So I really enjoy adding them in. And I think that every client should have some sort of mental emotional support remedy as part of their protocol. So if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Or again, I love and I focus a lot on different chronic issues with clients. So we're usually cycling through different mental emotional remedies throughout their protocol. Because I often work with people for 1 to 2 years based on the different viruses and pathogens and biotoxins that they have in their whole roadmap of what we need to do to get to their root causes and address them. I do use a lot of the DesBio series kits. And again, these are a fantastic addition to the protocols that I think most everyone can benefit from.
Well, these are actually extremely important questions. And so I really appreciated your combination approach. I love that they're kind of a trifecta: nutraceutical, the herbal remedies, and then the homeopathy. Let's just take it like 3 steps back and explain to people what is homeopathy and how does it work in the body. Kind of give them just a general overview. We do have some practitioners that are new to homeopathy.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I just think like giving a high level on it,
Sure.
great.
So one thing that's great is, so homeopathy is basically a very, very dilute and vibrational component to something that is naturally occurring usually in our world, right? So it could be a plant, could be a flower, could be an herb, could be a metal. It's a variety of different things. And basically you are creating a response in the body that triggers its own innate healing ability, right? So you use a minute amount to trigger our own system to correct the imbalance, right? So it's the concept of the father of homeopathy. His name was Samuel Hahnemann, and it was like cures like. So sometimes this is a little odd if we work on, detoxing people, and then you're using homeopathic mercury, right? Or something like that. People kind of get a little nervous, but it's usually just the vibration. Unless you're using one of a certain type of dosage, there's actually no actual matter in that product. It's a vibrational product.
Exactly. People always get tripped up over when they look at this panel and they see glyphosate. And I'm like, no. It's a remedy. I was like, likes cure like. So we're going to cancel out that frequency in your body by using a like frequency. So yeah, I use homeopathy a ton. So are any of the series kits, I don't think people are familiar with those. And just being on here will give you a kind of a high level. DesBio has numerous products that you can go check out in our catalog in the back of the Get Healthy store. They do have nutraceuticals, herbal formulas, glandulars, as Dr. Ashley had mentioned. And they also have a series of what I call comprehensive homeopathics, where there are different levels, as Dr. Ashley had talked about. anything from a mild to a more, how I would say, turned up the music really loud type of frequency. And so the beautiful thing is the body will take what it needs and doesn't take anything else. So these are very safe to use with, patients and clients that are on medications that you would fear, some sort of nutraceutical or herbal would interfere with. So you can use homeopathy relatively safe across the board from children all the way up to adults. Of course, adjust the dosage. And DesBio does have a lot of training, webinars, and curriculum that you can study, learn from. And I would suggest you do that. We always encourage our practitioners here at Get Healthy to have a wholesale account with our brands. That way you can experience the remedies as well. And have some for your office for your patients and clients that come in. Additionally, to onboard them onto your Get Healthy store. They are what we call ungated now, so they're open. People can shop them. We do keep this symptom series kits behind the firewall because those need more of a, practitioner-led experience. So that is all available on the Get Healthy store. And I have to say, you guys are making waves over here at Get Healthy. So we really appreciate being one of the only places that they can get it besides DesBio. So we're kind of exclusive with you, which I kind of like.
Yeah, it's great. You guys, I have a Get Healthy store, right? And I was so excited because it has a few of the lines, and I'm a, supplement snob. So I basically only could get some of these places on their own site. So it was amazing to have it under one roof, basically, for my clients to be able to order.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes life easy. So a few questions for you. Do you know if there are any issues with people who are on blood thinners with these remedies?
That's one thing that's amazing, right? So homeopathics, I always love using them because they don't react with medications. The only thing I would say is if somebody cannot tolerate alcohol, most of these are tinctures, but sometimes there are ways around that. But at the same time, in general, that would be the only issue is someone if they actually cannot have any alcohol just because it's an alcohol-based tincture. But that's what's great is I use this with little kids all the way up to, elderly with multiple medications. And again, it's always important to just always go slowly and start slowly with something new. But that's the beauty of homeopathy.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to get rid of the alcohol, because I do have some clients that may have overcome addiction, some parents don't want the alcohol for their kids. You can take the dosage that you're going to do, put it in half a cup to a cup of water, boil the alcohol off for about 1 minute to 3 minutes on the stove, pour that water into a mug, let it come to room temperature, and just drink it. So homeopathy is frequency. As you spread it out in water, it actually becomes more efficient. So that's not going to hurt the efficacy of the remedy. So Martha asks, yes, Martha, you can have the recording, of course. Second question, she has 3 questions here. Can you mix with other formulations?
So, oh yeah, you want me to go or you want to?
No, I was going to maybe have her clarify that question. Is she talking about other homeopathic formulations or herbal formulations? But I guess it wouldn't matter either way.
So there are 2 schools of thought in homeopathy, right? There are the classical homeopaths, which I was trained by, but I am a fan of what this is in DesBio, which is called polypharmacy, which is when you often are adding multiple remedies that have a similar effect, but it gives a better outcome because for the things that someone resonates with, you use it, and the things that they don't, again, there's nothing negative that happens. And so your outcomes, I believe, are much better with a combination formula, which is why I love DesBio and have used it when I don't use just one single remedy for one little issue. But you don't mix homeopathics with anything besides water, right? So it needs to be at least 10 minutes away from anything that is not water. So a lot of the times when you're trying to get kids to take them, it needs to be in water. You cannot put these drops in juice. You also need to not eat right after you take these. And the other thing I would say is you can mix some of these remedies together. But again, I still talk to clients about that. It's the same with taking a whole bunch of supplements, right? You really want to be very mindful and choose wisely and not just throw the kitchen sink at the problem, right? So these remedies are crafted very carefully And so you won't need to layer, 5 different remedies at one time, maybe a few, right? But generally they are very powerful. And again, you just wouldn't put them into juice. Some people put them under the tongue. I love putting it in the glass of water all day because then you get a sip multiple times a day. Like you were saying, it makes it exponentially more powerful. And that's what I would say.
Awesome. And she was talking about herbal formulations. And I think even DesBio agrees putting homeopathy with nutraceutical or herbal support makes the body work better. So I always say, there's certain things that work better in a foundational body. Sometimes you need to use something to pull somebody up and out quickly, but most of the time it's about strategy and when you put something in. Homeopathy can be used from the very beginning all the way through with a very healthy person. We all benefit from it. All right, here's another question, Dr. Ashley. I do have Elevate and a hormone combination. How do I use it?
So you basically, the standard would be if you have the tincture, right, to take 10 drops either under the tongue or in water. And the traditional would be maybe 3 times a day, right? That's when you would learn the nuances either of your client or how you would like to prescribe for your clients. That would be standard dosing. What you want to see too is like basically, if you have sensitive clients, you probably know that, or they know that. They're the person who, right, they take 1 drop of something and they get a reaction, or they take 1 capsule of something and, they have a Herxheimer reaction. So I always still tell people, some of these remedies are very strong, like the mold drops. I have been humbled by these drops and the lime drops. I'm a big, just take dropperfuls of things, but not with those. So you just always, I'd say, start slowly. You can get up to that full dosage in a few days. Just why don't you let your body make sure that it is going to like that?
Well, that is great advice. Thank you. And I hope you guys that are here at the recording, you will get that. And also that the people that attended the webinar, go visit the DesBio site. Make sure you add these products to your Get Healthy store. Obviously, some of my favorite products that I always start people with are the Omni Cleanse Kit. And what I love about DesBio is they make it easy for the practitioner with all the right tools in order to make it easy for the patient. Super important, especially when people are sick, to give them guidebooks, to give them resources. And it's probably one of the things that first attracted me to DesBio over a decade ago was how well they laid out their kit material, their symptom series kit material. Just everything is laid out with calendars and information and explanation. So this is an incredible brand, guys. You have no idea how it's going to revolutionize your practice. I promise you that. So find out more over at DesBio, grab a wholesale account, add these to your store, the remedies and the homeopathy that you want, and even the nutraceuticals. And Dr. Ashley, I thank you so much for giving us your time today and your expertise. We certainly do appreciate you being here. And Cheyenne, I see, who's in the chat.
Of course, it's my pleasure. I always love getting more people excited about homeopathy because it is amazing to have a tool that is so safe and easy to use. And then again, DesBio's education is fantastic, right? You can really dive deep into their protocols and how to use their products. And it's just really beneficial, especially if homeopathy is new to you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We were so excited to have you here. You will receive the recording if you registered, and we'll catch you next month when we bring in CellCore for their immune modulation and all their products that they're going to be talking about. Thanks, Courtney, for hosting this behind the scenes, and we'll see you guys next time.